Hi, everybody. This is Blaine DeSantis, and I welcome you to another edition of Books and Looks. Yes, it's our weekly voyage of discovery in the wonderful world of books. Books that I've read and authors that I've interviewed. But today is a little bit different. Yes, today is a special episode because today is our annual Christmas wish list. That's right, those books that you want to have under your Christmas tree, either to receive or to give. I'm going to sit there and go over books that I think you're going to really, really enjoy and which have appeared on my podcast. Now, that's important because, in America, anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million books are published each and every year. Just get that. 500,000 to 1 million books published each and every year. Then there are self-published books, anywhere from 2.3 to 2.8 million books every year. So we're looking every year at anywhere from 3 to 4 million books being published. Obviously, I can't read that. Neither can the people of the major media that like to tell you what are the notable books of the year or the best books of the year or which win awards. They don't read them all. They wouldn't know. And most of the books they read, I don't read. And most of the books I read, they don't read. So what you have to do is you have to realize that when you read and you see me on this show, I have read each and every book that we talk about from cover to cover, every page, every comma, you name it, I've read it. I'm also the only one who has interviews. That's right. You can go back and listen to the interviews of the authors to whet your appetite, get more into the details of the book that I'm going to really be giving you today, because we're just giving you an overlook. But these are books which I think any reader would really, really want to read and have under their Christmas tree. I know I would. And I look for books that are both entertaining and informative. It could be a mystery. It could be a history. It could be a fiction. It could be nonfiction. It doesn't matter. They're great books. And today we're going to have a host of them. It's a baker's dozen. That's right. I got 13 books for you today. And each time I tell you about a book, I'm going to refer you to my podcast number. So you can go back to my YouTube or go back to my podcast, Books and Looks. Okay. And you can then go back to that interview and see what we talked about. And maybe, hey, Blaine, I didn't realize this about this book. This sounds a lot better than what I remembered. Yeah, that happens to me all the time. This list changes constantly for me. So anyway, I just want to tell you, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to have a lot of fun with our Christmas wish list. Come along for the ride. And like I said, I got my flannel shirt on. I'm ready to read. It's getting cold. It's 35 degrees here this morning in South Carolina. Brr, a little chilly. So I'm ready to read. I'm slugging in, okay? Let's start out with the very first book. It's called Worthy by Jane Boulware. Now, this you can find in episode number 70 of Books and Looks. Jane came on as a wonderful, wonderful discussion I had with her. It is an autobiography from a girl from Iowa making it to the corner office at Microsoft. She is a wonderful, inspirational author who has done so much. It's not an inspirational book. It's not a book which she's trying to pitch to people. She just wrote about her life, and it is a fascinating life. And I've learned so much about the process of going from where she was in Iowa, growing up, and then going out to college, and going from there, working up at Kimberly-Clark, and then the whole bit about the takeover at Scott Paper and how thanks to her, I now know how they make toilet paper, okay? That Chester factory outside of Philadelphia, and then making it to the corner office at Microsoft. What a great book, and just so much insights. And she's a lovely person, just a wonderful person. By the way, all the proceeds from this book are going to charities. Yeah, nothing for her. All the proceeds go to charities. So if you're looking for a really, really fine autobiography, a really fine memoir, you're not going to go wrong with Jane Boulware, because I'm going to tell you what, Worthy is certainly something which I think every one of us would want to read, because you'll get a lot of different inspiration. You'll find out a lot of different facts. I think you're really going to enjoy Jane. Now, I go to fiction. That's right, my next book, and these are not in any order 1 through 13. I'm just throwing them out here, okay? My next book is called Mercury by Amy Jo Burns. Now, that's episode number 69 on the podcast. Last year I did a book on karaoke as the main focus. That was one of my Christmas wish lists. This year, I got a family of roofers. That's right. Every year there's a quirky novel that comes in here. I love this. This writing by Amy Jo It was just spectacular. She did a great job telling us about this family of roofers and a young girl who moves into the town of Mercury. Okay. Moves into the town of Mercury. And there she eventually sees these roofers as she comes into the town. And eventually, before you know it, she's drawn into their circle and she starts dating one of them, or maybe not dating one of them, but at least being around one all the time. Then she likes the other one, who she eventually marries. And it is a family of secrets. It's a family of many things. We learn about the roofing industry. We learn about the secrets of the town and the people. And what makes this book so good to me, at least to me, okay, is that in the beginning, let's say the first half of the book, we have action. We have things going on and things are happening. And you went, wow, that's weird. Why is that happening? We have a death. Oh, yeah, there's a murder mystery in here, folks. There's murder involved in this too. But we have a death. And in the second half of the book, we start to see, oh, this is why a person behaved a certain way. This is why a person did this. Ah, now I understand this. And it's really fascinating how this young girl gets into the family. She marries one of the brothers, and eventually she starts to run this roofing company like it should be run. Because in the past, no one kept records, no one kept notes, no one kept any financial stuff. It was a disaster, as many family-run businesses are. So this is a really good thing. It got a lot of pushback, by the way, from all the men in the company. They didn't like that. But the bottom line is, it is a fine, fine book. It's a book which I went through in around 2 days. I loved it. It was a great read. And I think you're going to really like it too. Again, Mercury by Amy Jo Burns. Book 3 is Street Fight. That's right. We just talked about this book by Anne Morrissey. This is episode number 94. As I have pointed out many times, I looked at the cover of this book, and I could have sworn this was about Al Capone and the gangsters. It wasn't. Street Fight is about the taxi wars that took place in Chicago from 1919 up to 1930. It is an in-depth look at the battle between Yellow Cab and Checker Cab, okay, two big cab companies, and the battle they had for control, along with a hotel. That's right. The Hotel LaSalle also was involved in taxis for a period of time. But it was ugly. It was difficult. We had assaults, batteries, we had murders, arson. I mean, we had gunnings, all sorts of stuff. It is amazing what these two companies did to each other until Checker Cab had their own civil war. Who was going to control Checker Cab? Was it going to be one group, or was it going to be the other group, the Union group, which was led by a bunch of mob guys? Interesting. Who wins out? I have to find that out. But Yellow Cab, the name very important here, John Hertz, of Rent-A-Car fame. That's right, John Hertz. He shows up in this, and he does a great job in this book. And he set up this most extremely progressive system where if you worked for Yellow Cab, no matter what position, mechanic, driver, cleaner, whatever, you got your own lawyer free of charge. They got you a doctor free of charge, nurse free of charge. But many times they would send the nurse home to one of their employees when the wife's giving birth. She would be the midwife. Yeah, it was an amazing situation. And this battle for control of the Chicago taxi service was just out of control. It was out of control. And, finally one did win out. I'm not going to tell you who won out, but I'm going to tell you this much. It is a fine effort. I'll tell you, I learned so much about Chicago, so much about taxis. And the author, that's right, Anne Morrissey, her great-great-grandfather was the CEO of the Yellow Cab Company, who was also died under rather mysterious circumstances on Christmas Day. I don't want to get into that. Let's not say too much about that. We'll have Ann tell you about that on that episode. That's right, episode number 94. It's Street Fight. It's a great book by someone you're probably not going to hear about, but I'm going to tell you what. You don't have to be a well-known author to have a spectacular book, and Street Fight is one of those types of books. Now, every now and then I decide to do a sports book, okay? And I try to do baseball books because I like baseball. But I like old-time baseball, okay? I like it a lot more than I do modern day baseball. But anyway, this book, the next book, was by a gentleman named Jim Leeke, Leeke, and it's called The Gas and Flame Men, and it comes in at episode number 64. This book takes place around and during World War I. Okay, when you throw the fastball, you have a lot of gas, you have a lot of heat on that ball, okay? That's the gas and the flame men. But also, these ball players who enlisted in the Army during World War I were put in charge of that division with the chemical weapons, with the flamethrowers. This was an intimate look at a bunch of players, many of whom went into the Hall of Fame, led by guys like Christy Mathewson and Branch Rickey and others. Great names in baseball who went over and fought for the U.S. during World War I. Ty Cobb's in there too. I'm telling you, all these guys signed up, and I wonder if they would do it nowadays if they had to. I don't think so. But back in the day, they signed up, they went over there, I don't know why they would put them in this one basic division, but part of the reason is they were used to being disciplined, self-control. They knew how to handle people, because by the time the war came out, Christy Mathewson, one of the great pitchers, matter of fact, part of that first Hall of Fame class, Christy Mathewson was a manager, so he knew how to take care of things. And then the question becomes, Christy Mathewson died a few years later, and did this being part of the chemical unit, being part of the gas and flame men, did this cause his death or speed up his death? There are a lot of questions that are answered here, but you know what? I read it because I love the patriotism. I love that all these guys signed up for the game, signed up to play to go to, not play, they went up to fight the Germans. And then what happened to them while they were over there? It's a wonderful book, not your typical sports book or baseball book. And again, that's why it makes the list. It's a lot different, but you're still going to really want to love that. Again, The Gas and Flame Men, that's going to be episode number 64. Now, who had the first major crime ring in America? Well, it's not who you think it is. It's the talented Mrs. Mandelbaum. That's right, the talented Mrs. Mandelbaum by Margolette Fox, which comes into episode number 82. You want to listen to this one. This is great. Mrs. Mandelbaum, a middle-aged Jewish immigrant from Hamburg, Germany, comes over here and eventually sets up this monstrous, huge, nationwide gang in which she is basically a fence. Now, she didn't mind the crime, but she didn't want to do anything that's going to harm anybody. There's going to be none of this shootings or killings or maimings or anything like that. Nope. We're going to sit there and we're going to just be able to get our goods, sell them for a profit, okay, and move on. This is an amazing story about a woman who had nothing when she got here. And her husband began as a street peddler, and she did some also. But eventually she realized if we stay street peddlers, we're going to be down here in the bottom the rest of our lives. So she started this syndicate. Yeah, she started this syndicate. And before you know it, more and more people are coming. And now she's even telling people, here's how we want to do this. There's what we want to go. You have to read this to find out the detail involved in that. Her house, which was her storefront also, how that was laid out in such a way that if somebody came in that she was a bit suspicious of, she could shut down things, okay, so people couldn't find where things were located at, including shooting some stuff right up the chimney. Yeah. I'm telling you, this one was something else. And like I said, she helped people plan bank robberies, all sorts of crimes. It went on and on for around 20 years. And eventually one of her own people started to turn her in. Okay. She sort of, I don't know if she's got religion or, whatever. She decided to turn Mrs. Mandelbaum in, who then went up to Canada and did stuff up in Canada. It's a great story. I mean, the research involved in this, and she actually has, Margolette has the drawings that were in the newspaper back in the 1880s. And so that adds a real spice and personalize this book. You can really see Mrs. Mandelbaum. They said she was half mountain, half a loaf of bread. I mean, she's like 6 feet 250 pounds. That's a big woman. Okay. Oh, my word. So anyway, yeah, that's a great book. Oh, my. The Talented Mrs. Mandelbaum by Margolette Fox, coming in at episode number 82. Now, what's next? Sometimes we poo-poo books that we get, and I get over 1,000 books a year to read, okay? No wonder my glasses getting thicker and thicker. But anyway, I get over 1,000 books. So sometimes you poo-poo when it says, oh, young readers or middle school or things like that. Say, well, is it really? Would my audience and would find it fascinating? But sometimes you give it a chance. And that's what happened with the next book. It's called The Enigma Girls by Candace Fleming, coming in at episode number 75. Now, this book is written for that, I'd say, middle school to young adult range. But I'm 71, and I'm finding out stuff that is out of this world because the Enigma Girls is the true story, mind you, of these teenage girls in England who are recruited to work out at Bletchley Park. Oh, yeah, the great spy place. Yeah, Bletchley Park. Yeah. No. They were using young girls aged 14 through 19 out there to break the German code. I never knew that. Not only that, she goes into all the details about the Secrecy Acts, the Privacy Acts. She tells us about the living conditions that are out there, how one girl may have worked in one area, another girl in another area, and they may be bunkmates, and they didn't know what the other one was doing because they weren't allowed to talk about their work. We hear about one young lady who was assigned to the coast out there by Dover, and all she was to listen to the dots, listen to the beep, 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 or the beep, 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 or the dots, or the message, or whatever. And in the middle of the night, she's there, and all of a sudden, she hears a voice say, I know you're there. That wasn't a very good German accent, was it? No, but can't do a German accent that well. But anyway, the German was speaking to her because he knew somebody was listening. He tried to unnerve her. Didn't matter. Go ahead. She got everything back to the main headquarters, and there were so many Enigma codes because we think there's one. No, there was one for every branch of the German army, from the army to the Air Force to the Navy. They all had something. They were changing almost every day or every other day. It's amazing what the way the Germans did and how these girls cracked this code. And by the end of the war, they were told, well, now war in Europe's over. Now you got to learn and help crack the Japanese codes. Now, these girls had no idea how to even speak Japanese. They had to get a crash course in that. It is an amazing story that I really think that every young adult I ever do, if you have kids, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, friends, let them read this book. Let them see what the dedication of these girls during World War II and how they did what they could do their part for the country. Nowadays, we have social media. Those girls were in a complete blackout then. Could our kids stand a complete blackout? I don't know. But you know what? War's not on our front door either. There's not bombings going on here in the United States. Aerial bombings from other countries. So anyway, this book by Candace Fleming is just a remarkable look at around 10 of the women who were young girls back then, very young girls, teenagers who worked at Bletchley Park and broke the secrets of the Nazi code. Again, something I never knew of. There it goes. History, education, and a great story. Wow. That comes in, again, number 75, episode 75. Let's take a break a little bit. What do you mean take a break? And I still more to go. That's right. We're going to take a break. I'm going to bring on the book Balance. I'm taking a break because it's a completely different book. It is a young reader's book or middle reader's book. We just had it on the other day. That's right. Sarah Albee comes in with her book Balance. That's episode number 93. Now, Balance is the story of rubber, okay? And it's only 40 pages long. And it is written for what she calls middle readers. Now, that can be anywhere in the spectrum. You could have maybe a high elementary school person, 5th, 6th grade, maybe that up into 9th, 10th grade. Would this be good for them? It's very, very easy to read. It's got wonderful drawings in it. And it is a great book about the history of rubber. And she talks about the history of rubber in the beginning in one sort of way. And then as the time goes on, we get to more interesting stuff about rubber, how it is made. We get into the polymers, which I think I forgot that. Did I ever learn polymers in school? I don't know. But she tells us about polymers. And she's talking about the history of rubber. And she's talking about some of the environmental problems with rubber. And so she's telling us all about the history of rubber, a bibliography that just unbelievable, unbelievable bibliography. I mean, a young reader's book with a bibliography. I couldn't believe it. But she does a great job in the word bounce. Bounce, the story of rubber. Take a look at any one of her books. Take a look at any book that Sarah Albee has done. She's done one about Gilbert, I think is it George Gilbert Sullivan? I forget who it is. The person who painted the pictures of Lincoln. Did a great book on their relationship. She did a book on poop, a book on sanitation. She does books on all different things. She has another one coming out next year called Zero, okay, about the number that almost didn't exist. And I'm telling you what, I read that one too, by the way. That's very good effort, very good work. So it's a book which your little kids, you can tell your elementary school kids could enjoy it. And it keeps going on there, and you can read it to them, and they can start to understand. And I'll tell you what, she goes out, she talks about it to all sorts of classes, all over the country. She talks to the elementary and middle school kids about it. It's a great book. You can't miss it. And oh, by the way, at one time she used to write all the Sesame Street books. If you have a book somewhere in your library about Elmo or anybody, Bert and Ernie, she probably wrote that under a different name, but she wrote those too. She wrote for that. She did Dora the Explorer. She did SpongeBob. What a career. And like I said, this is some great book. She now does history and science book for these middle readers. You're going to really like this. It's called Bounce. I want to go back now, as we're starting in the second half here. I want to get back a little bit to an autobiography, a wonderful, beautifully written book called Elk Love by Lynn Spriggs O'Connor. This is episode number 84. First of all, I ask all of you, do me a favor. Go to YouTube, type in Elk Love and Lynn Spriggs O'Connor. You will see one of the most dazzling 2-minute trailers for a book that I have ever seen. Apparently, that's become a new thing. People now have trailers to promote their book. This was beautiful. Beautiful photography, beautiful music. You get the feel. You get the feel of Montana. And that's what we have with Lynn Spriggs O'Connor with her book, Elk Love. Like I said, episode number 84. It's about a young girl at the time who moves from Atlanta out to Great Falls, if I'm not mistaken, Montana. There she's put in charge of a museum. And from there she goes to another museum. And she's out there working in the field, doing her stuff there to promote the museum. And she goes to meet a person who could be a donor. And she has this accident, and she almost totals the car. And lo and behold, here comes somebody who's called to help pick her up. And it's this gentleman she was going to see. And it's about their relationship too, because it's through her relationship with him, who's a big rancher out there, that she starts to understand and appreciate the beauty of nature out there in Montana. It's just wonderful. It's loaded with all sorts of great stories and stories about her love of the elk. Oh yeah, her nighttime looking at elk as they go walking by underneath. She's up in a tree blind, and the elk go walking by, and the big bull elk is roaring right beneath her, and it shakes and rattles the trees, and it talks about the cattle that are on the farm, and all the birds and the wildlife. I mean, I gotta be honest with you, this is just a spectacular effort that it makes you want to go back out to Montana. Okay. I've been there once. I want to go again and again. And it's just beautiful, beautifully written. And then we find out is the first of what will be 2-part autobiography. Okay. She's got up to one point. Then she'll be writing another one for the second part. But this part is just beautiful. It's how she falls in love with not just the elk, but all of that Montana. And maybe the gentleman who picked her up that first day. Maybe him too. Yeah, it's a great story. It's one that you want to read because it's uplifting. It's uplifting, and you know what? We need that. We need that more than anything. I know I don't try to get political here, but there's been so much static lately, so much noise on both sides. Read a book about nature. Read a book about science. Read a book about somebody who's enjoying and appreciating the country, because there is so much to enjoy and appreciate. And Lynn Spriggs O'Connor takes us firsthand to what it's like to be living out in the wilds of Montana. It must be something special. All right, that's been episode number 84, by the way. Let's go back here. What's next? Oh, well now. What is the most popular YouTube podcast I have? What has more people listen to than anybody else? It's The New Tourist by Paige McClanahan. Okay? episode number 81. Over 1,300 people have gone in for the YouTube. The podcast has got more than that. I mean, people love it. This, first of all, if you have not watched this interview, you want to watch it because Paige is there and she is giving us an interview from a park bench in the middle of Paris during the Olympics. It was the easiest thing to record. There were no glitches, no foul-ups with the Wi-Fi, nothing. It was the simplest thing, and she is wonderful. What a great travel writer she is. And this is about the new tourist. As I said, episode 81. It's about the development and the rise of tourism from the 70s and how things prior to that time, you had your AAA travel guides, you had the grand tours and all that stuff, but nobody had really done much for the average guy. And so we find out these people who go from New York, they from London, they follow the hippie trail, they get out into the middle of India, Nepal. Eventually they get over to Australia, and they begin what's called the Lonely Planet Guide. Yeah, the Lonely Planet Guide. They start all that, and then more and more start coming out. These travel guides come out. And now we fast forward to today and how things have changed. People don't want travel guides. People are now traveling because social media and social media influencers are going locations. So one story she tells us is how Justin Bieber at one time did a music video set in Iceland. You would not believe the millions and millions of people who went to that location just so they could go to the same place that Justin Bieber was when he filmed his video. I kid you not. And it created some problems. That's right, because it created problems with the environment. There are too many people. And that's what we have to watch and be careful for. The new tourist has to be careful as well as being where they're getting their information from. Because not only do we have things like where Justin Bieber was, you see all these people, they go to Rome, they go to France, they stay, and put something up. Oh, here is the Louvre, and here's Mona Lisa, or here's the David statue. And then people rush there and flock there. I mean, the numbers of people that are touring Europe are out of this world. And many of us are disrespectful. That's right. She tells us the difference between a tourist and a traveler, okay? A tourist is sort of derogatory. A traveler, well, you have a little more higher expectation. You do a little bit better. And the beauty is, when you're the person who's touring or traveling, you're the traveler. The other guy's the tourist. When I go there, I'm the traveler, and you're the tourist. We all see ourselves in different ways. But she really tells about also cities that have become anti-tourist because of the way they've changed the cities. She was there in, where was she? In Barcelona back in 2013 when the beginning of the anti-tourist things were going on. And this summer, you may have seen that in Barcelona, very big protests about the tourism and how it's changing the city, how all the older places no longer are for locals. They're all being turned into Airbnbs, or all being torn down to make into hotels or something like that, all to accommodate the tourists. And that they don't like that. Matter of fact, there's some pictures of a girl, if you remember, you may remember this, squirting her little water pistol at people who were eating at the outdoor cafe. I don't think that's the right thing to do. People did nothing wrong, but that goes to the discontent that people have. And then there's some places like in India and some other countries that are doing a really fine job with the tourism and how they're trying to make things more environmentally sensitive and things like that, and still enjoy things, but they're trying to just do things in a different way. And that's what this is all about, traveling and touring. And the other beauty is I don't have to go anywhere. I can stay at home, put on YouTube, and somebody who's been there has popped something up, you see? But see, many people see that and say, well, I want to go there. And that's how a lot of people do get their travel ideas now, from YouTube, from the social influencers. And it's a whole different way things change. As a matter of fact, one of the other bad things is when they put things out like, oh, this glacier is almost dying. It's going to be dead in 3 years. There'll be nothing left. And here go millions of people there to see it, which create more problem, more pollution, more chaos to the environment. Yeah, I guess, a dual-edged sword. But I'll tell you what, Paige McClanahan does a heck of a job in her book, The New Tourist. That's episode number 81, coming to you from a park bench in the middle of Paris. Biographies. Do you like biographies? Yes, some can be pretty dense. pretty dense, pretty deep. I get some, and I'm not going to mention the name of some of the authors, but they're in font size 6 or 8. They're tiny print. They're, 1,500 pages long, 500 pages of notes. I can't read that. It's too much. I can't. But you want a fun biography, an interesting biography about somebody you never heard of? Well, how about this? The Sugar King of California. That's right, The Sugar King of California by Dr. Sandra Benora. Wow. We're talking about the life and times of Klaus Spreckels. Klaus Spreckels, episode number 90. Now, you know Klaus Spreckels. You don't know Klaus Spreckels. Nobody knows about Klaus Spreckels. This man was the absolute wealthiest man in California. He was one of the 10 wealthiest men in America. He was right there with the Vanderbilts and the Mellons and the Carnegies and the Ford, you name it. He was that wealthy. He was that powerful. And he became a sugar king. And there's another person like Mrs. Mandelbaum comes to America as an immigrant with 17 cents in his pocket back in the 1840s, comes to America and begins the process of becoming both an American and becoming a major entrepreneur. And this book was around 300 pages long, easy to read, well, the simple chapters, and then there are subparts within each chapter. I learned so much about Klaus Spreckels and his son, John, who basically is the guy who developed San Diego. I mean, he started out in beer, Klaus did. He was a dry goods guy. Then he went to beer. That wasn't enough. He decided to go out west. He became involved in sugar. He's the guy who actually invented the sugar cube. Yeah, I put one in my tea. 1 lump or 2. Okay, every time you put a sugar cube in, that's Klaus Spreckels. And we hear all about how this developed. We heard about how he begins his love of sugar and the sugar beet, because on the whole, America was a sugar cane type of country. We got our sugar from down in the Caribbean. But he believed in the sugar beet, which was only grew in Europe. He would go undercover to Europe to find the newest techniques, on how they're doing things and to find out little inside tips about it. And he started it in California. And from there, he went out to Hawaii. And within a year, he was the biggest sugar man in California. And that upset those missionaries' children or grandchildren who went out there, and they wanted to be in control of the state, okay? And that's the same group that led the overthrow of the monarchy. But Spreckels and the monarch were very good friends and never had a problem. He was trying to do things for the monarchy, for the Hawaiians, who we saw were being kept so poor by those missionary ones in power, including the name Dole. Okay, that's one of them also. But anyway, it's a very interesting book because then he comes back to San Francisco. One of the things I liked about Klaus is that every day at lunch, all his workers, no matter where he was, were going to have a beer. Free beer at lunch, okay? And when it was all over, whistle blows, toot, toot, oh, let's go have another beer, okay? He treated his men beautifully. They loved him. They absolutely adored Klaus Spreckels. No one disliked him at all. The sugar beet industry, fascinating stuff. It grew. They had sugar beet blights and problems like that. And one thing leads to another, and unfortunately, things start to go downhill for Klaus because of the Eastern Syndicate of Sugar. That's right. They now want to get involved in things. And so, bottom line is Klaus led one heck of a life. His family fought each other, brother versus brother, sister against brothers, brothers against father. I mean, it is a fascinating look at the Spreckels family and Klaus himself. This may be the best biography I've read in at least 20 years. It is a spectacular book. And if you got to say, I'm going to read one biography, hey, The Sugar King of California by Dr. Sandra Benora. You can't beat this one. Episode number 90. You go back and watch that one. Now Annie Reed comes on. Oh, I liked Annie Reed. Very good interview with her. Episode number 88 about her book, The Imposter Heiress. Again, we're going back into that Gilded Age sort of time here. And here we're following the exploits of one Cassie Chadwick. Cassie Chadwick, who during that time period wanted to become wealthy. She wanted to have a life of ease, and she was a poor farm girl from up in Canada. So what does she do? Well, she becomes a con person. I mean, she runs cons at every town around Lake Erie. And she's many times found out, but she always has a story. She doesn't end up doing much jail time, if any. She always has something. She forges things. She forges promissory notes, all sorts of things. And then one day it hits upon her. It dawns upon her that if she really wants to hit the big time, she should tell everybody that she is the illegitimate daughter of Andrew Carnegie. That's right, the wealthiest man in the world at the time, Andrew Carnegie. She is his illegitimate daughter, and he is going to be giving her $10 million, but it's tied up in a trust or something like that. And now she goes around with this, and she has people giving her money, loaning her money, because they want to have in with Andrew Carnegie. Ooh, she never says all the things about it, but she says, I'm the illegitimate daughter, and they're all working with me now because he realizes, and boom, 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 boom. And this story about this woman who conned all these people, I mean, bank people, people who should be smarter than this, ministers, all sorts of people. And she got not just $100 or $1,000. She got over $2-3 million. Are you kidding me? All based upon, she have a business card that says that she is who she is and that she's the illegitimate daughter of so-and-so and has a trust fund of $10 million. Who writes on a business card? But back in the 1880s, I guess anything goes. And people, based on that, they loaned her money. They gave her money, and she never paid it back. She never paid it back. Oh, she eventually tried to do some paying back, and it was a little bit of a Ponzi type scheme. But basically, she loved diamonds. She bought all this. She lived the high life for 15, 20 years. I mean, she married a doctor, milked his family dry, nothing there. You shake your head. You really do. You feel badly for some of these people who've been taken in. You say, well, they should have known better. But, how did you get news back then? How do you know she wasn't the illegitimate daughter of Andrew Carnegie? I don't know. There's no internet. Papers weren't, the papers were out there, but they don't report stuff like that. So her stories were always plausible. She was one of the best con women, con men, con people, whatever. She's one of the best grifters that were out there. I'm going to tell you what. Her story is a wonderful, wonderful look at this time period and what people were doing. And Annie Reed, I really enjoyed my interview with her. She taught me and brought up so many things that I never knew about. And that was quite interesting. I think you would get a kick out of this book too. Again, number 88 is called The Imposter Heiress. 2 more to go. Hey, last week we had on a spectacular interview with Julian Forsberg about the Rhino Keeper. That's right, the Rhino Keeper. It's about a guy named Captain Duamot Vandermeer and this 3 or 6 months old rhino, baby Indian rhino called Clara. This is a true story. Okay, well, it's fiction and it's nonfiction. Okay, most everything in this book is true, is historical. We have to add a little bit to fill in the details because this happened back in 1743. People weren't keeping diaries back then, especially guys, okay? We don't keep diaries. So she had to add a couple things, but the bottom line is this really legitimately happened. He either bought or was gifted a 3-month-old Indian rhinoceros in Calcutta, and he decides he's going to take this rhinoceros with him. He's the captain of a ship of the Dutch East India Company. Going to take it up to Leiden, okay? Go to the University of Leiden, have it examined and see everything's okay. And then he begins the process of taking this rhinoceros on tour. This is a wonderful story. I mean, this is something else. The rhinoceros is friendly. People at the time thought that rhinoceroses were man-eaters, that they were beasts, that they were killers. They're not. Rhinos are basically very, very docile creatures that only eat plants and fruits, okay? And drink beer. Yeah, Clara liked beer. We find out Clara liked beer and cigarettes or tobacco smoke. But this is a story about this gentleman who formed a bond with an Indian rhinoceros. And for a period of time, years, toured all over Europe, went to the palaces of Versailles, went to the Queen in Austria. Their guests for a month. Let all the people come in and see it. The amount of food that this rhinoceros and his team of oxen or horses that took him around in the carriage, they ate too. It's amazing. It is utterly amazing how much they had to make and get in terms of food. And that's why they charged admission to help pay for pay for the cost of all this. But it is a wonderful, wonderful story. I'll tell you what, they're good guys, mostly good guys. There are a couple of really bad guys, including one priest. Didn't like Gregor at all, but he was worried. He was frightened of celebrity. Clara was a celebrity. She was the first celebrity. Oh, then we have a new timeline. That's right, a second timeline. I didn't mention that yet. That's it's now 2024. It's now up to the present. And now we've got a mystery involving the bones that are in a museum. Whose bones are they? Are they Clara's bones? And what about Clara's horn? Is Clara's horn anywhere to be found? One picture back from the 1740s, 50s had Clara with a horn. Another one had Clara without a horn. What happened? We'll have to see. But this, as I said, was just a spectacular effort by first-time debut author who prime job is she's a bridal shop owner. That's right. I've never had a bridal shop owner before. If all bridal shop owners are this good, keep writing stories then, okay? Because I love this book, and I love the interview with her. Julian did a wonderful job, and I think you're really going to like it. It's called The Rhino Keeper, episode number 97. All right, for our last book, number 13, we go to episode number 95. It's called Undone by Abbott Kaler. This is, by far, the Page Turner of the Year award for me, okay? Page Turner of the Year. I read it in one afternoon. It is an amazing, true story about love, sex, murder, and the search for utopia on the Galapagos Island. Yep. Yeah, I'm kidding you not. It is a true story. Nothing is fictitious. It is all about a couple people who went from Germany, decided they wanted to escape civilization, and went to the Galapagos Islands and lived there. But people would stop to visit. There would be naturalists who would come by, or wealthy people want to do whatever they want to do and see the country there. And word got out that these two people were there. And before you know it, here comes somebody else. And that family shows up. Uh-oh. And the first family doesn't like the second family. And so there's a feud that's going on there. Now, this is an island that's 67 square miles in diameter, okay? But there's a lot of lava rock and things. It's not that much is habitable, but still, nonetheless, these people couldn't get along. And shortly thereafter, the Baroness comes with her two lovers. Oh, yes, not one, but two lovers, and maybe a third who could be an Ecuadorian architect. I mean, that's a wild lady, too. And these people come to live on this island. And this is a story about their living together, their coexisting, their feuds. The one gentleman who's there was getting ready for being on the island, so he had all his teeth pulled. And he had stainless steel dentures. Well, unfortunately, his jaw started to shrink and the dentures were too big. His girlfriend, paramour, whatever you want to call her, when she's there too, she has dental problems too. He pulls her teeth. And when someone's there and he talks, he puts his dentures in. Then if she wants to talk, she puts his dentures in her mouth. I've never seen anything so silly in all my life. But this is going on and on. And then it begins, we had 2, then we had 4, 5, next thing we have 11, and then there were 10, and then there were 9, then there were 7, and then, it's a mystery. What's going on? What's happening to people on this island? Love, sex, murder, and the search for utopia. And the thing is, nobody can exist without the outside help. That's the thing that I found out here. They all want to act as if, we're fine. We can do it without any help. But, could you bring us this when you're coming back? These people would come there. Oh, could you bring us this? Could you bring us that? And we need food. And then one person would hoard the food that was brought for somebody else. I mean, it was just an amazing thing. These 11 people just couldn't get along together. Ay. And it is by far the Page Turner of the Year. And I think you go to episode 95, my episode with Abbott Kaler, you're going to love this book. And this book is just so good. So good. Friends, that brings me to the end of my Christmas wish list. And I'll tell you what I was looking at. I'm looking at all these other lists that are out there, be it your Goodreads lists or your New York Times, your Wall Street Journal, your LA Times. You know what I see? Well, I don't see these books. I don't see them anywhere. Instead, what I notice in many of these publications, they'll have notable books or best books and the year, boom, boom, boom. And it's been submitted by around 8 or 9 different people. Huh. Well, what if I don't like this person's opinion of this or that? Like I said, I read each and every book, cover to cover, talk to these authors. They love to come on. I love to have them on. You can get more in depth from all these episodes. You can go back and look at each and every one of these episodes and find out more about what these books are about. And like I say, when it comes time to buy something, and I know you have around a month to go, you go and you sit there and say, you know what? I think I'm going to get this book. I want a biography. I want an autobiography. I want a fiction. Okay. I want to have history. I'm going to have all this. Going to find out a lot of stuff. Have a lot of fun. That's all I can say. So, hey, this is the annual Christmas wish list from Books and Looks. So on behalf of my good friends at Podcast Studio X, this is Blaine DeSantis saying, may all your leaves be pages in a book.